the lady comes back. The following year, after all this, this was in 2013, is when I really got that message from her, because that's when I was asked by the Pentagon, by 2 Air Force generals, to put it in writing what she told me. And I did. And this was on request from NASA, a friend at NASA. So he come and got it and hand-delivered it to these generals. And she told me that, she said that when the star of Regulus, she called it a red star. When you look at it, it looks blue. But she said when Regulus is red on the horizon, in front of the gaze of the Sphinx, before daylight. So in other words, when it's sitting right on top of the horizon, before the sun comes up, that moment would mark a change in humanity's knowledge. And she showed me other things. War, us bombing Iran, us bombing Syria. And in them days, none of that had happened. So I put all that on this piece of paper. And now I've had so many write me back, oh my God, you see they just bombed Iran, or Iran just bombed us, you know? You were right the whole time. And I did that in 2012. And so what they did was I gave them the date of 2026. And now you hear it all over TV. 2026, that's the big date. 2027, that year, something's going to happen. Armageddon, you hear it all over, you know, you hear, well, you know Lou Elizondo, right? Lou's mentioned that date. A lot of people have.
Easter 2026.
Well, the year 2026. I gave him the specific time. Event that he knows is going to happen in 2026. I said, Robert, it's not a ruby, it's the star of Regulus. He looks like, he's like, oh my God, it's the king star. What's going to happen, I don't know. But I think it's possible that's the return of
Christ.
Yeah.
Kind of suggests the government knows something, ordering the Pentagon and other agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, UFOs, and any and all other information. So does the government have hard data on aliens? Congress has held hearings amid a surge in reported sightings.
Have exploded once again as Iran launched yet another devastating wave of missile attacks on Israel. This time in the key port of Haifa.
In the first 3 months of 2026, the American Meteor Society logged 2,322 fireball events. That is the highest first quarter total in its modern database.
Government agencies to release files on UFOs, aliens, and extraterrestrial life. He's calling on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to release, quote, any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. Just days ago, former President Obama told the podcaster he believes aliens are real, but has never seen any evidence of them making contact with humans.
My husband is missing.
Tonight, new audio from the wife of a retired Air Force general gone missing in New Mexico.
I have some indication that he must have planned not to be found.
That's William McCaslin's wife, Susan, during the call to authorities on February 27th, the day her husband disappeared. The call was first obtained by Law and Crime and later verified to NBC News by the Sheriff's Department.
He's left his phone, he changed his clothes into I don't know what. I think he's on foot.
McCaslin's disappearance generated a lot of speculation due to his past career as a high-ranking military general. McCaslin was retired, but at one point worked inside an Air Force base in Ohio, long rumored to house extraterrestrial debris, despite repeated Air Force denials.
Welcome to Total Disclosure. My name's Ty Roberts, and if you've been following the news the past few weeks, you probably already know something is unfolding right now in 2026. A feeling deep inside the pit of your stomach, maybe even at this exact moment right now. Something feels off, something you can't quite put your finger on, a sense of dread or longing for the old days, something that feels scripted, something directly from ancient prophecy. What if I told you you're not as far off as you think? The story begins in darkness, literal and spiritual. In 2007, Chris Bledsoe was a man at the edge of collapse. A successful construction business had crumbled beneath him. Chronic illness plagued his body. Financial ruin loomed. And perhaps worst of all, his faith, once unshakable, had begun to also fracture under the weight of all their suffering. So he did what many do. When everything else fails, he went into the woods. Cape Fear River, North Carolina. Remote, silent, a place where modern world falls away and something older, something watching can press closer. That night, Chris wasn't searching for aliens. He wasn't chasing ghosts or mysteries. He was praying. He was desperate, raw, unfiltered. And as soon as Chris seemed to give up, well, that's when the sky decided to answer. Lights appeared above the tree line, silent, controlled, deliberate, not streaking like meteors would. It wasn't blinking like any known aircraft. And Chris is a pilot himself. Silently, the craft hovered and then moved with intent. After that came the impossible. It began to descend. What followed wasn't just a mere sighting, but the first of what would become a close encounters or divine intervention. Chris would later describe being drawn toward the phenomenon, his fear overridden by something else, something almost inviting, a presence that didn't feel mechanical as much as it felt aware of him, as much as he was aware of it. The encounter felt personal. Then came the missing time. Hours gone, memories fragmented. His son, Chris Jr., was nearby, also witnessing the impossible. Their lives from that moment forward split into a clear before and an irreversible after. The encounters didn't stop there. They escalated to new levels. Orbs returned repeatedly, intelligent, responsive, almost communicative. Witnesses began to pile up, friends, family, even skeptics, forced into silence by what they saw with their own eyes. And then came the moment that would define everything for Chris Bledsoe going forward, the visitation. Chris described her not as alien, but as something much older, archetypal, radiant, a presence that seemed to transcend all categories. He called her the lady. She appeared not in chaos, but in very much stillness, not as a spectacle, but as a revelation of sorts, the divine feminine, commanding, yet deeply compassionate, a figure that seemed to echo across centuries of human history, through religion, through myth and apparition. And then she spoke, but not in words, in knowing. She showed him visions, not of distant stars, but Earth, of humanity, of cycles repeating. An imbalance was growing. A world was approaching a threshold. She revealed that at a time would come a specific alignment tied to celestial cycles, when humanity would face a reckoning of consciousness. A shift, not destruction, but transformation. A narrowing path between chaos and awakening. Chris would later connect this to astronomical timing, to patterns in our skies, to dates that seemed impossibly precise. And always, at the center of it, the lady wasn't presented as a conqueror, not as an invader or an alien overlord, but as a guide, a messenger, something that blurred the line between a divine encounter and extraterrestrial contact. Could she be what ancient cultures called an angel, a Marian apparition, a non-human intelligence wearing a form we can understand, or something that exists beyond all three, beyond human comprehension? Chris didn't claim to fully really understand that part. He only claimed this: what he experienced was real, and that the message mattered. Because since that night in the woods, the world has only grown louder, more unstable, more divided. And now, more than ever, people are beginning to ask, what if this wasn't just One man's story? What if it was a warning, or worse, a countdown that was already in motion? Tonight we're going to revisit the encounters of Chris Bledsoe and the message of the lady. We're not going to be looking through the lens of mythology, but as a possibility we may already be living through. Scientists vanishing under mysterious conditions. All of this is converging with a literal Easter deadline from the US to Iran, all happening in the final days before Easter, Sunday, April 5th, 2026. And the reason I bring up Easter holiday is because that one man, Chris Bledsoe, says a luminous being he calls the lady, told him that these exact events, orbs in the sky, missile exchanges before and between Israel and Iran, a Sphinx alignment, and that would trigger a new knowledge for humanity. And forgive me if you're skeptical, but look around. Let's break it down step by step with every verified detail so we can start to see the larger picture. Let's start with the skies, because they're impossible to ignore. The American Meteor Society is reporting that March 2026 as one of their most active fireball months in their entire 15-year database. Over 2,300 reports in the US alone, with multiple mass sighting events that each drew over 200 plus witnesses in just a single night. That's more than all previous Marches combined. Key clusters: March 17th, Ohio, bright fireball with a sonic boom, rattling windows, and possible meteorites recovered. March 19th and 22nd over California, hundreds of reports, glowing objects with fiery tails captured on dash cams and doorbells. March 20th, Michigan and Georgia. March 21st in Texas, two major events including an orange fireball that eyewitnesses described as zigzagging and even shooting straight up before a baseball-sized fragment crashed through a Houston family's roof, ricocheting inside of their home. Vancouver, March 3rd, and major European sightings over France and Germany on March 8th and 11th. One seen by over 3,000 people with audible booms. And you might be wondering if any of these fragments were collected and analyzed. Public line, standard HED and chondrite meteorites, nothing artificial. Trajectories do match natural streams near the equinox. We all know that we pass through meteor clusters about twice a year, but here's what's driving the UFO frenzy. Videos show the initial streak, morphing or turning into steady glowing orbs that slow down, fragment in bizarre ways, or appear to hover before burnout. X and other social media have become flooded with the tags UFO, orb, alien probe. And one Texas witness said, quote, "It wasn't acting like any meteor I've ever seen." The AMS, or American Meteor Society, notes increased cameras and instant sharing are amplifying reports, but the sheer volume and odd behaviors, they do have people asking, natural surge, or the thousands of orbs rising from the oceans we're about to hear about. Chris Bledsoe's prophecy from the lady explicitly says that orbs would herald this transition into a new knowledge. That they, the orbs, would reveal themselves and begin to open people up to the truth. The Middle East. On February 28, 2026, the US and Israel launched airstrikes targeting Iranian nuclear facilities, missile bases, military sites, and killing top leadership. Iran responded immediately with waves of ballistic missiles, drones, and cluster munitions aimed at Israel, US bases, and Gulf allies, including Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Over the course of the past couple weeks, in the March 26th to 28th timeline, Iran fired at least 9 to 11 major missile barrages at Israel directly, with impacts reported in Tel Aviv, injuries, Safed, and fragments over the West Bank. Cluster munitions hit Haifa suburbs, Bnei Brak, and Petah Tikva. Dozens of civilians injured. Israel has conducted hundreds of retaliatory strikes on Tehran, Isfahan, and northwest Iranian provinces, degrading launch capabilities and infrastructure. Over 600 strikes total so far. Both sides vow to continue with full force, with Gulf states reporting ongoing drone threats. This is no longer simply posturing. It's delved into sustained war in its 5th to 6th week, with civilian tolls continuing to mount. Many are calling it biblical in scale and circumstance. Right on cue, the ancient world lit up. Italian radar engineer Filippo Biondi, part of the Cafre research project with Corrado Malanga and Armando May, revealed preliminary satellite-based synthetic aperture radar, or SAR for short, and Doppler tomography scans. They detected a huge subsurface anomaly 50 to 180 feet underground beneath 108-foot compacted sand mounds on the Giza Plateau, geometrically opposite of the Great Sphinx and aligned with the Khafre pyramid axis. Data shows vertical shafts, horizontal passages, dense linear features interpreted as engineered stone walls, and incredible symmetry, mirroring the known Sphinx's underground network. Biondi estimates 80% confidence it's a second Sphinx or part of a larger subterranean megastructure or citadel. They're linking it to the ancient dream stele between the paws of the existing Sphinx, which some interpret as depicting two mirror image guardians. No excavation yet, no peer-reviewed paper, and mainstream Egyptologists remain, well, highly skeptical. What's new? And until physical digs can confirm, which, granted, their standing probably won't happen, the scans are public, the geometry is striking, and the story exploded globally. Millions of views overnight. A buried twin Sphinx, hidden for millennia, suddenly revealed right now. Going back to Bledsoe's encounter with the lady, she says that when the star of Regulus appears on the horizon in the gaze of the Sphinx, this would signal the beginning of this new knowledge for humanity. And this brings us to the US government's own moves. In mid-February 2026, right around February 19th, 20th, President Trump posted on Truth Social directing the Pentagon, led by Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other federal agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing all government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, what we call UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. He cited tremendous interest from the public, following Obama's podcast remarks suggesting that alien life does exist and it is out there, but it's not at Area 51. Trump came back saying Obama shouldn't be talking about this as it is classified information, and he emphasized public demand as of this taping. No full release has dropped yet. The process does seem to be underway, and the directive is official and ongoing. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna from Florida heads the Secrets Task Force, and she has said that she's confident that the public is owed this explanation, and she plans to have a press conference at the moment these files come to light. It also doesn't stop there. Around March 18th, the White House quietly, for a moment at least, got wind, until the UFO community caught wind of it, registered two new .gov domains, alien.gov and aliens.gov. And according to federal records, no website content right now is live as of this filming, but the timing, 1 month after Trump's order, has the community buzzing. Some reports quote officials saying, stay tuned, but it's hard to argue that this is the most concrete government signaling on disclosure ever, period. And right in the middle of this disclosure push, a string of eerie disappearances among high-level insiders with ties to advanced aerospace and UFO-related programs. On February 27th, 2026, literally the day before Trump's public UFO file order took effect, retired Air Force Major General William Neal McCaslin, 68, vanished from his Albuquerque, New Mexico home. He left on foot around 11 a.m. for what appeared to be a trail run or a routine hike in the foothills. No phone, no glasses, missing items, his wallet, a revolver with a leather holster, a red backpack, and hiking boots. Searchers later recovered a light green, long-sleeve outdoor shirt and the boots in the area. An Air Force sweatshirt was found earlier, over a mile away, but there was no blood or signs of struggle, no confirmed sightings or video of his direction. McCaslin commanded the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the same Ohio base steeped in Roswell debris rumor, housed Project Blue Book, and has been the subject of decades of UFO conspiracy lore. He oversaw billions in advanced aerospace tech and black budget money. He briefly consulted with Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy on UFO-related media projects, and was even later mentioned in the WikiLeaks John Podesta emails discussing UFO materials. Now, it is important to say that his wife emphasized he was sharp, not disoriented or suffering like any kind of Alzheimer's or cognitive dissonance, and that much online speculation is misinformation. The FBI has joined the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office search, calling it a grave national security concern given his classified knowledge. Here we are, going on a month later. As of this taping, he's still missing. And even stranger, authorities confirmed at least one former colleague, NASA aerospace engineer Monica Reza, 60, vanished under eerily similar hiking circumstances in a Los Angeles forest about 9 months earlier. She and McCaslin shared professional ties through advanced materials research, like the high-performance Mondaloy, the nickel-based superalloy for rocket engines. Reports mention additional high-level defense scientists in nuclear physics and aerospace who have gone missing or been found dead in recent months, and probably more to come soon. At least 2 to 5 in the last 8 months. No confirmed connections yet, but there seems to be a theme. And the timing, right as Trump's orders for full UFO file declassification, has sparked intense online discussions about whether these are coincidences or something more. And this is where every thread knots together. Chris Bledsoe, back to North Carolina, the contractor, documented experiencer whose case drew interest from the CIA, from NASA, and the Vatican, has described repeated contact with this person, a lady, often linked to Hathor or Sophia, Holy Spirit, or Fatima. She appeared to him on multiple Easter dates, and he alleges in his book UFO of God and on the viral episode of the Sean Ryan interview where Bledsoe shares his prophecy in detail. Quote, "She told me that when the star of Regulus, she called it a red star. When you look at it, it looks blue. But she said that when Regulus is red, on the horizon, in front of the gaze of the Sphinx, before daylight, that moment would mark a change in humanity's knowledge." Bledsoe's modeling pinned the core celestial alignment to 2026, specifically around Easter. He's described visions of Iran and Israel exchanging missiles, and he's talked about it quite frequently, which would act as the trigger for thousands of orbs rising from the oceans to wake people up and stop it. Not the end of the world, but a revelation, new knowledge, a spiritual or disclosure shift. Some tie it to Hopi prophecies for world transition, while recent recalculations by some astronomers suggest that the exact Regulus Sphinx horizon moment might fall later in 2026, possibly October. Bledsoe consistently frames the window around Easter as this pivotal period. And the orbs that we're seeing now, the missile war already active, and the second Sphinx under the first one's gaze, government disclosure accelerating, and key insiders vanishing, all syncing with what the lady described years in advance. Coincidence? Pattern? Or the exact unfolding the lady prophesied? This isn't a fringe theory. It's a verified headline set from the American Meteor Society, major news outlets on the Iran-Israel conflict, peer-reviewed radar researchers, White House domain records, and Trump's official statements. Not to mention active law enforcement missing persons cases. Easter is just a day away. The sky keeps lighting up. The war rages on. The sands of Giza may be about to give up their secrets. Disclosure seems to be in motion. Insiders disappearing. I'm not here to fearmonger or declare the end. We're documenting the convergence in real time. What do you see happening? Let me know in the comments. Are the orbs the heralds? Is this new knowledge about to be here? Drop your thoughts below and share this video if any of it resonates with you. Make sure to subscribe for live updates as April 5th approaches. Stay awake, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one. Because if the lady's right, total disclosure will be here right when it unfolds. This episode of Total Disclosure is brought to you by Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite partners that we've ever had on the show. As I've given up alcohol, I'm very open about this on the show, and I think a lot more people choosing that same path. So if you're looking for something that can truly replace alcohol in any setting, whether you're unwinding after a long day of research, hosting friends, or just want to stay clear-headed and in control, Good Feels delivers a completely different kind of experience. It starts with their 12-ounce stubby bottles of cannabis-infused seltzers. They're crisp, clean, zero sugar, and 0 calories. And they're designed to give you a smooth, fast-acting, elevated feeling without the crash, without the hangover, and without the downsides of alcohol. And if you're more than an at-home mixologist, Good Feels also has fast-acting beverage enhancers. You can add them to literally anything. Sparkling water, mocktails, whatever you like, and create your own customized experience. This isn't about checking out, it's about tuning in, staying present, and upgrading the way that you kick back and relax. And right now, listeners of Total Disclosure get 20% off their order. That's getgoodfeels.com for 20% off exclusive to this audience. Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. Replace the alcohol, keep the experience, stay in control. Now back to the show.